Welcome back, students. Today we'll be discussing about retail placement or retail distribution, which is a continuation of the previous two lectures. So today we'll be discussing about that, and before that let's revise what we have been discussing on the previous two lectures. In the first lecture we have discussed about retail products, and then the second lecture was about retail placement, and we have seen in details what those mixes are. So saying that retail distribution, we are going to use some basic terms, retail terms like that of POS or point of sale, POP, point of purchase, SKU. You are familiar with this term when we discuss about retail price as well as retail product. It is stock keeping units, purchase order, pro forma, and then a purchase order form, pro forma invoice, out of stock, safety stock, and we have a couple of other terms that we'll be discussing in near future, some of the terminologies. So when we discuss about distribution or retail distribution, it means that availing your products for the customers, basically for consumers. In the case of retailers, when retailers distribute the product, they distribute or they avail the products for consumers rather than any other customer. If the retailers dispatch or distribute the product for business customers, then they are not functioning as a retailer, but they are functioning as other entities. But retailers, they distribute for consumers, so that it is known as retailing. If you remember the first chapter, when we discuss about retailers and retailing, we have said retailing is the process of dispatching or delivering the products for consumers. Of course, manufacturers and producers could dispatch or deliver the product for consumers, but they are not retailers, but they are functioning as a retailer, meaning they are performing a retailing, but they are not actually retailers. So when you say retail distribution, it means that dispatching or spreading the product or availing the products for final consumers. We have said that price is very sensitive and one of the mixes that we should consider, but distribution can also make or break a company, meaning that when you distribute, when you avail your products for customers, meaning the consumers, the final customers, on timely basis and on the place that is required, then you can make profits. But if you fail to deliver the product where the customers need it, then the company eventually fails to make profit. So distribution is another basic concept that you need to understand. If you see the statement in here, it says the company that spreads its products, meaning that delivers its products wider in a wider range and faster into the marketplace at lower costs than the competitors could not make profit as this specific company. So as a retailer, you should make sure that you distribute the products in a variety of ranges, and thereof in a faster or speedy delivery, so that you can make profits and you can compete in the market. So if that's the case, what is the distribution system that are available in the table so that you can use these distribution systems? Basically, we have two distribution systems. We have direct distribution and we have the indirect distribution. When you say direct distribution, it means that the producers or the manufacturers directly distributes the product or build the product for consumers. So there is no intermediary between the producers and that of the consumer. Then it is known as direct distribution. In other name, this direct distribution is known as zero level distribution. When you say indirect distribution, in these two cases, the producers or the manufacturers distribute its product for consumers using one or more intermediaries. It might be retailers, it might be wholesaler to retailers, it might be agents to wholesaler retailers, but there will be an intermediary between the producers or the manufacturers and that of the final consumer. So it is known as indirect distribution. When you think of the indirect distribution, you have three options or alternatives. One level distribution, we have two level distribution, and then we have three level distribution. When you say one level distribution or two level or three level, it is the number of channels that you use between producers and that of consumers. For instance, in here, in the one level distribution, between producers and that of consumers, there is only one channel, which is retailers. So it is known as one level distribution. As such, when you say two level distribution, there will be two levels or hierarchies of intermediaries or distributors. For instance, between producers and that of consumers, in here we have wholesalers and then retailers. So we have two hierarchies or two levels between the producers and consumers. Then it is known as two level distribution, which is indirect actually. And then when you say three level distribution, you might have producers, agents, wholesalers, retailers, then consumers. So these are the distribution system that you have. So when you think of scope, we have another distribution system, but we'll discuss that in the next slides, and we will discuss about this in detail in next slides. So what is the functions of intermediaries in general? When you say intermediaries, it includes retailers, wholesalers, and that of agents. So what are the basic functions of those intermediaries, and basically and especially what are the functions of retailers? So we have three basic functions of intermediaries or distribution channels. The first one is transactional type of function, meaning they only focus on exchanges. So when you discuss about transactional functions, or when you say transactional, it includes buying, selling, risk taking, and that of minimizing the touch points. So the retailers, they purchase the product from producers. In this diagram, if you see, the retailers purchase the product from producers and then they sell it for consumers. So this is one function of intermediaries. They buy the products, but when they buy the product, they purchase it in bulk amounts, and when they sell the product to consumers for the final customers, they sell it in single units. So that is one function of retailers, or in general intermediaries. So they buy the product and then they sell the product on profit basis for consumers, and then they take risks. Risk includes holding inventory. The product might be perishable, it might get obsolete, the product might get damaged because of fire or flood or any other catastrophes, and then when they purchase the product, because the ownership is transferred to retailers, they take all the risks associated with that specific inventory. For instance, if the retail store get robbed, then it is a risk that the retailers will take. So risk taking is another function of retailers, and then they reduce or minimize the touch points. For instance, the company, by the way, we can eliminate intermediaries, meaning we can distribute the products by ourselves as a producer or as a manufacturer, but we will never and ever replace the function of retailers or the work of retailers or intermediaries in general. So they reduce the touch points, meaning that they minimize the producers or the manufacturers uh, time when they deliver the products for consumers. The other function is logistical function. So in the logistical function, logistics means it's just a transfer of or movement of products from point A to point B. But in the logistics function, as you see, the retailers or these intermediaries play as assortment, or they assort the product. If you remember third chapter when we discuss about retail products, assorting means holding variable or varied brands in a single product category. So they assort the product, they arrange the products with uh, with different brands or with varied brands. The second is storing. They store the product, they purchase the product, and they store the product in a warehouse. We'll discuss about warehouse in the next slide. So they store the product, and whenever the consumers needs that specific product, they sell for the consumers. So they provide with storing. For instance, if you think of purchasing juice, for instance, you only consume a certain amount of uh, juice, a certain volume of juice, but these retailers purchase in higher amounts or in bulk, and then they store the products for later consumption by consumers. So they provide storing function, and then they sort the product. The sorting means uh, breaking uh, the bulks into smaller amounts or into smaller quantities that is desired by the consumer. So they sort the product, and of course they transport the products, meaning they uh, bring the products from producers or from manufacturers to where the consumers are located. For instance, if you want to purchase a soap, the manufacturer or the producers might be located far away from your destination, from your residence. So these retailers purchase those products from the manufacturers or from suppliers, which is far away from your residential areas, and then they bring it to your uh, homes or your residence. So they transport the product from manufacturers to consumers. So these are the logistical functions of intermediaries and specifically retailers. The third function is facilitating function, meaning they speed up the process of purchase and sales. They provide you with financial support, meaning they might give you credits, well, depending on the customer's loyalty, depending on the customer's uh, trustworthiness. So they provide you with financial support, they provide you with credits, and then they provide a service of grading. So when you say grading, it means they check the quality of that specific product. They test whether the product is as per the customer's standard or not, and so on. So grading is all about quality. So they grade the products for customers, and they deliver based on the customer's standard. A third facilitative function is they conduct research, and then they deliver information for both customers, manufacturers, and that of suppliers about how we are going to use the product, how you are going to dispose the product, how you are going to store the product, what is the functionality of that specific product, and so on. For the customers and for the suppliers, they provide information about the customers purchase frequency, the customers purchase quantity, the customers purchasing power, the customers need, and so on. So they provide information for both suppliers, manufacturers, and that of consumers. Then the fourth category in the facilitative function is spatial function, meaning they reduce the distance uh, that you might go to producers in purchasing a certain product. So they reduce the distances between producers and that of consumers. And then we have temporal function. So when you say temporal function, they speed up the requirements of customers, meaning in meeting the customers' need and wants. So when you say temporal, it is about time, and when you say spatial function, it is about place or distance. So spatial function and thereof temporal function. When you discuss about function of distribution management, because all the distributors, meaning the intermediaries and so on, they require to have management, whether it is sole proprietorship or any other entity. So they need to have distribution management. So the first function of distribution management is they provide distribution efficiency. When you say distribution efficiency, it's about economic manners. It's about uh, it's, it's about how you can get a specific product within time limits or with appropriate time. So when you discuss about the distribution efficiency, you are discussing about minimizing number of contacts needed in reaching the consumer. So because of cost constraints and that of other resource constraints, the manufacturers could not deliver the product for consumers. So these distributors provide the products or the products for consumers, and they make the distribution efficient and effective by providing the required products at the time that is needed by the consumers. So there is a research that's conducted somewhere else. So this research shows that using intermediaries or using channels, meaning distributors, uh, will give you more advantage than distributing the products yourself as a producer or as a manufacturer. The second function of making the distribution efficient is the breaking the bulk and assorting the products. So when you break the bulk, it means the retailers purchase the product in large quantities and then they sell it in single units. When you say assortments, they hold different brands, different variety of products. So they sort the products other than breaking the bulk. So it is a reputation. So we don't have to discuss further about these two issues. The second function of distribution management is they provide salesmanship. If you remember your course, salesmanship and sales management, the basic function of salespersons are informing the customers, helping the customers to choose between the products and to identify the customer's interest or the customer's requirements. So as a salesperson, you should help your customers. So these distribution management or distribution managers provide a salesmanship function. Of course, we have different salesmanship functions based on sales. We have pre-sales and after sales. On the pre-sales part, the salesperson provides them information about the product, the different alternative that the customers could choose from, and then they provide how they are going to use the product and so on. In the after sales, they might provide you with transportation service, they might provide you with installation service or maintenance service and so on, based on the product that you are going to purchase. So they provide salesmanship function. Third, they help in price mechanism. So when you say price mechanism, it's about negotiating and setting the right price for the customers as well as for the manufacturers, since there are intermediaries between producers and that of consumers. They help both the manufacturers as well as the customers by negotiating with both parties with a fair price. Of course, you need to think of profits as a retailer yourself, so they negotiate between producers and that of consumers. The fourth function is they look after a part of physical distribution and financing, meaning since the retailers own the product, since the retailers take risks, they involve in the distribution elements, meaning in transportation. They transport the products, meaning they move the products from point A to point B, in this case from producers to consumers. So they choose different transportation modes, the appropriate transportation modes, and then they deliver the products for the consumers. And then in handling, it is about inventory management actually. They manage the inventory not to become out of stock as well as overstock. We'll discuss what out of stock and overstock means in inventory management portion. So they manage the inventories so that the customers will acquire the necessary products in terms of quality, in terms of quantity, without being out of stock and overstock. So they manage the products. And then the other is warehousing, meaning they store the product in appropriate storage area and temperature and conditions. So this is another distribution elements. And then they might sub-distribute the products, meaning that after they purchase the product, they might distribute the product for other retailers or other intermediaries. And then there is order processing and inventory management. Actually, inventory management and inventory handling, it is somehow similar. So it is better if you take it as one and focus on inventory management. They take order from customers, they order the manufacturers or the suppliers, and so on. So this is the physical distribution and financing function of distribution management. The fifth function is they provide market intelligence, meaning that they conduct research, they conduct intelligence, and they dispatch the information for customers as well as for manufacturers. In the marketing research course, you have identified market intelligence, market research, and that of internal database. So I hope you know what the difference between these three terms. So they conduct market intelligence and they use the information and they provide the information for both the customers as well as for manufacturers or producers. They assist in merchandising, meaning When you think of merchandising, it's about products. It's about product arrangements, product assortments, and so on. So they work on merchandising. So you can refer the third chapter lecture to understand what merchandising is and how we should go about merchandising. The seventh function is they act as a change agent, meaning that they create demands. They promote innovative products. They promote new products to the market and to the customers. And here, what you should think is there are three terms: want, need, and that of demand, and you should identify what the three terms means. Things you cannot create need and want because they already exist in nature, but you can create demand as a marketer. So they use as a change agent means they promote the innovative products, they promote new products for the market, and they can generate and create demand for those products. So these are the basic functions of distribution management or distribution managers. After that, we will be discussing about elements of distribution. Basically, we have 6 or 7 distribution elements, so there's 6 elements, but in here we'll be discussing only a few of the distribution elements, and we will discuss it next year in logistics and supply chain management course. The first element of distribution or logistics is transportation. So when you say transportation, it means moving the products from one point to the other point. So when we discuss about transportation in terms of manufacturers, they transport the product from suppliers to the raw material warehouse. So that is one part of transportation. And then in the manufacturing process, or when they produce the product, they move the products from one machine to the other machine. Again, there is transportation. And the third is when they deliver the product to the customer. So we can classify it into 3 parts when we discuss about manufacturers. But when you discuss about retailers, when you say transportation, they purchase the product from suppliers or producers and manufacturers. That is one part. So they bring it to the retail store. And inside the retail store, they move the product from shelf to shelf, from their warehouse to the sales store. So there is another transportation there, and in some cases they might deliver the products to your doorstep. Then that is the third part. For instance, if you take Amazon, they deliver the products to your doorstep. So that is the third part. Amazon is a retail store. It is a retailer, actually. We discussed it in the last chapter. So transportation means moving the products from one point to the other point. So when you think of transportation, there are different means. When you think to transport or to move your product from one point to the other point, you have different options. You could use roads, meaning you could use vehicles, trucks, or any transportation vehicles that moves on the road. So road is one means, and railway is the other. When you use trains, trams, and so on, so it is known as railway transportation system. We have aerial transportation or air transportation systems. So in the air transportation system, you have different classifications. In each, you have different classifications. We are not going to discuss about this in this chapter or in this course, because you'll be discussing it in logistics and supply chain management course. But just for highlighting, when you think of road, you have low beds, high beds, trucks, and so on. When you think of railways, you have trains, trams, and others. When you think of aerial transportation, again, you have quadcopters, you have helicopters, you have um, other mechanisms. Currently, we have drones, which is a quadcopter. So this is aerial transportation. In the water transportation, it is marine transportation, the other name. Water transportation, marine transportation is the same. So in the water transportation, you have different transportation systems like that of uh, you know smaller vehicles to that of very large vehicles, and we have pipeline transportation. Other than this, we have telecom transportation, and then we have space transportation. Space transportation is a recent transportation mechanism, and we are not using it for commercial purposes, but telecom transportation, we use it much often when we deliver products through internet. So it is known as telecom transportation. So you could use any of the transportation mechanisms or transportation systems in delivering your products from producers to consumers, but in choosing any of the transportation system, you should think of these 6 basic criteria. So number 1 is cost, number 2 is speed, and then dependability, frequency, and so on. For instance, we gave you 2 basic examples. If you are using FMCGs, meaning fast moving consumer goods, if you are delivering these type of products, and if it is perishable or perishable products, speed is the most essential part than power or the others. If you think of gas and liquid type of products, then it's better to use pipeline transportation systems than the other transportation systems. But as I said, it depends on product, depend on different other circumstances in choosing between this type of transportation systems. For instance, if you are exporting flowers, horticulture, that means if you are exporting from Ethiopia to Holland, you are not going to use railways because there is no system, and you are not going to use water or marine transport because uh, marine transport is not faster, and horticultures are actually perishable products, so you are depending on speed. It is better to use aerial transportation, and of course you cannot use pipeline in that of telecom transportation because uh, of the products. So this is all about transportation. The second element of distribution is inventory. So when you think of inventory, you are going to discuss about inventory management, order processing, and so on. But when you think of inventory means products, and it could be raw materials, it could be semi-finished goods, it could be finished goods, and so on. When you say raw material or semi-finished goods, uh, for one company it might be raw material, but for the other company it might be semi-finished or it might be finished products. If you take tires, car tires for instance, uh, for the car manufacturer it is a raw material. Actually it is a semi-finished product because it requires a couple of process, but for tire producing company it is a finished good. So when you say raw material, it doesn't mean that that product is always raw material for all companies, but it might depend on what the company produces. So it could be any of these three products. So when you think of inventory, when you think of inventory management, uh, one third of the cost or one third of the budget and the investment is on inventory. Because of this reason, you have to take care in purchasing the product, what type of product you are going to purchase, how we are going to store it, how much you are going to purchase, and so on. Is very important. You have two options actually. Number one is you might hold a low quantity of stock, or you might have excessive quantity of stock, meaning you might have a low quantity of inventory and that of excessive quantity of inventory. Both has advantage as well as a disadvantage. If you remember chapter 3, when we discuss about product, we have calculated OTB, open to buy system, in controlling the inventory, right? So today we'll discuss other inventory controlling systems, but it is important in managing your inventories. So what is the advantage of having low quantity of stock? The first advantage is that uh, when you hold lower amount of inventory, the tied up cost will be minimum, meaning you can invest the money somewhere else and it is free to be invested in any other product or in any other business when you hold a low quantity of stock. But the problem is if there is demand changes, if the customers require more of that product, then you'll be in jeopardy, and then you might even lose the customer. So that is the advantage and the disadvantage of holding lower quantity of stock. uh, the same when you go to holding excessive quantity of stock, that is the second option. You have an advantage as well as a disadvantage. The advantage is that when you have excess quantity, if there is demand changes, if there is demand fluctuations, there's no problem of losing your customers. But the problem is that if you hold excessive quantity of stock or excessive quantity of inventory, then you will incur tied up cost, meaning your cash, your money will be tied in the inventory, so that you cannot uh, purchase any more products, or you cannot invest in any other businesses. So this is the advantage and the disadvantage of holding lower quantity of stock and excessive quantity of stock. However, there are systems to manage these problems. There is ROP, meaning reorder point. Uh, there is a correction here. It says to order, but read it as reorder point. ROP means reorder point, and EOQ means economic order quantity. There is a misspell in the above title. So ROP means reorder point and EOQ means economic order quantity. So when you say ROP or reorder point, it will tell you when you should order a certain inventory or a certain product so that you will not be out of stock. When you say out of stock, it means when you don't have any more inventory or any more product to be sold in the markets based on the requirements. So ROP or reorder points will tell you when you should order that product. I'll come back to the economic order quantity, but let's finish what ROP is and how we are going to calculate ROP. So we have two basic formulas. The first one is ROP or reorder point is equals to average lead time multiplied by average usage. When you say lead time, it is the time the product to arrive to your retail store, starting from order points. So average lead time multiplied by average usage will provide you ROP or reorder point. However, you cannot be sure uh, on the average lead time or on the average usage because there might be fluctuation, there might be uncertainties. In some cases, the demand might increase or might decrease, so the average usage might not be known. And then for other different issues, because of breakdowns in the manufacturer's warehouse or in the manufacturer's plant, or because of legal issues, or because of traffic jams, or for different reasons, the lead time might be higher than they expected. So because of these reasons, it's better to use the other formula. Reorder point is equals to average lead time multiplied by average usage plus safety stock. So when you say safety stock, it is the inventory amount that you should hold just in case there is demand fluctuations or there is uncertainties in the lead time. So it is known as safety stock. So reorder point is equals to average lead time multiplied by average usage plus safety stock. So it is better to use the second formula in calculating reorder point. So reorder point is again it will tell you when you should order a certain product, at what point you should order the product so that you will not be out of stock. So ROP works, there are assumptions in the ROP. So ROP works assuming that the items ordered are certain. Okay, the items that will be ordered is certain, that it is known, and consumed within the immediate time, in the time span of that specific season, the products or the inventory will be consumed. So this is the two assumptions, but this might not be the case, so it's better if you use the second formula. When you say economic order quantity, it will tell you how much to order or how much to purchase. ROP tells you when to buy or when to purchase the product, or at what point you should order the product, and EOQ will tell you how much you are going to purchase the products. Again, in the EOQ, actually these two goes hand by hand. The ROP and EOQ goes hand by hand. We'll discuss that in the next slides. But the assumption is that in calculating EOQ, number one, uh, the the demand is constant, meaning the purchase amount by customers or consumers is constant, and the second is order costs and holding cost remains constant. When you say ordering cost, it is the cost that you incur whenever you order a certain product, and holding cost is a cost that you'll be incurring by storing the product. So it is known as tied up cost again. So these two are constants, so you can calculate EOQ. If these are not constants, then you cannot calculate EOQ or economic order quantity. So when you calculate EOQ or economic order quantity, you are going to use this formula, which is 2 multiplied by annual demand unit multiplied by cost of placing order divided by annual inventory cost multiplied by cost of 1 unit of product, and then you are going to put these in square roots, then you can get EOQ, economic order quantity. When you say D, it means annual demand units, meaning the demand of customers in that specific product annually. And then O means cost of placing the order. When you order a certain product, there is cost, so it is ordering cost. I means annual inventory cost, and then C means cost of 1 unit when you purchase the product. So diagrammatically, when you say ROP, it is a point where you should order a certain product. It will tell you when you should order the product. So when the inventory reaches at this point in this blue broken line, when the inventory reaches at this point, you should order your products so that at the point it reaches the minimum level, your product will be replenished to the maximum or to the original level. So the green broken line is the maximum level. If you hold more than this, okay, if you hold more than this line, then you will incur tied up cost. If you hold less than the minimum level, you will be risking stock outs. So if or when you reach at this level, at this point, at the blue broken line, you should order your products. It will tell you just the point where you should order a product. It doesn't tell you how much you should order. The economic order quantity will tell you how much to order. So economic order quantity is the point where the total cost is at the lowest. When the total cost is at the lowest, then that is the economic order quantity. So when you put these two together, when your inventory level reaches at this level, meaning at the reorder level, you are going to order this much amount of inventory products. So just to clarify these two terms, order point and that of order quantity, let's see some examples so that you be clear what we meant by ROP and that of EOQ. So assume that a retailer sells juice along with other products and the following information has been identified. So in here we only focus on one product, which is juice. We are not focusing on other products, but you can calculate for the economic order quantity for other products too. So annual demand is 4,000 units of juice. Cost of placing order is $4, and then annual inventory cost is 10%, and cost of 1 unit of product is $2 again. When you say D, it means annual demand. O means cost of placing an order. I means inventory cost in terms of percent. C means cost of 1 unit of product. So computing this information, you will get the EOQ to be 400 units per order. You can see the calculation, the steps in here. So EOQ will be 400 units per order, meaning that the economic order size, if you order 400 units of products, or meaning juice, you will not be out of stock, as well as you will not be in a tied up cost. So you can save the finance, or you can save money by ordering only 400 units. Again, the assumption is that in calculating EOQ, the demand as well as the order cost and holding cost is constant. Bear in mind that. So if you order 400 units, then you will be economic. In calculating reorder points, this is the other example. So XYZ PLC, meaning this company, let's take this retailer. So XYZ PLC, a retailer needs to find when it should place orders for specific products of juice from its supplier. relevant information is as follows. So the average sales is 30 units of juice per day, and then the average lead time is 3 days, meaning if you order today, you will get the product after 3 days. And then the safety stock is 100 units of juice. EOQ we have calculated in here, it is 400 units. So when you calculate ROP, you are going to use the second formula that we have discussed in earlier. So average lead time multiplied by average usage plus safety stock. So the average lead time is 3 days. The average usage is 30 units. The safety stock is 100 units. So when you compute this, ROP or reorder point will be 190. So when you put these examples, the two examples, it means that the company should order 400 units of juice when the inventory, meaning the inventory that the retailer orders, reaches 190 units of juice. If you see it in the diagrams, let's assume the blue broken line is 190. So when your inventory as a retailer reaches 190 units, you should order 400 units of product so that it will be replenished back to the original. So this the safety stock, this one, is 100 units, and the lead time is 3 days, meaning from point of order to point of replenishment. Lead time means it is a time that takes from point of order to point of replenishment. So you could use these two models in managing inventory. Of course, there are other inventory management systems, JIT system and JIC system. JIT means just-in-time system, and JIC means just-in-case systems. And then we have ABC inventory management systems too. So the other element of distribution is warehousing. So when you say warehousing, it means the storage facilities. It might be moving or it might be fixed. We have different warehouse types, which is not our subject matter in here, but we will discuss that in logistics and supply chain management course. So whenever you think of a warehouse, you should address these three basic questions. Number one, which is better? Meaning, is it better to own a warehouse or is it better to rent a warehouse? So it is cost benefits analysis. The second question that you should address is which is the right location. Is it better if you if your warehouse is located near the factory, or is it better if you locate the warehouse near to the market? So depending on the product, depending on the market type, depending on other issues, you are going to address these questions. You are going to analyze this basic issue. The third is which decision is more appropriate, meaning to locate the warehouse at one location, or is it better to disperse the warehouses in different locations again? This requires other issues like that of demand, and then transportation costs, loading unloading costs, and so on. So you'll discuss more detail in logistics and supply chain management course, to be exact, in the second chapter, chapter 2. So you'll be discussing about these issues in there. So in warehouse, you should address these basic three issues. The other name for warehouse, it is known as arrested transportation, or 0 miles per hour transportation. Okay, so this is the name for warehouse. The other name for arrested transportation is, it is known as arrested transportation, or 0 miles per hour transportation. Okay, so So warehouse is known as arrested transportation or zero mileage transportation. So this is the other name for warehousing. Of course, in the warehouse as well as in the inventory, there are different other issues that you should think about, whether to operate in manual or to use automation. For instance, if you think of inventory, you have automations. Again, in the warehouse you have automations. In the order processing you have automations, and you could perform in manuals too. The other element is order processing. So when you say order processing, it is accepting the orders from customers and arranging the products, checking whether the product is available or not, if you could deliver or transfer the products to the customers and so on. So order processing requires a certain steps. This steps is important in order processing. So the first step is you are going to place the orders by customers, meaning the customers fill the order form or the purchase order form, so that you could check whether that product is available in the warehouse or not. So that's the first one, order placements by customers. After that, the salespersons transfer these orders to the company to be checked whether that product is available in the warehouse or if the product could be manufactured and so on. For instance, if you are using a JIT system, meaning just-in-time system, you are not going to hold inventories in the warehouse. Rather, you are going to produce the products at the time of requirement. If you are using just in case inventory system, you will stock products in the warehouse so that you will have a certain time to deliver the products. So the salespersons will transfer the products to the company so that the company will check if the product is available or not. And then we have entry of order by company office, meaning they enter the orders based on the specifications to the warehouses, and then they will evaluate the reputation of customers, and then they check the inventory, and then they ship the products to the customers, and there will be a payment. So these are the steps in order processing. So in order processing, there should be interrelation or there should be loyalty and negotiations in these steps. Then the the other thing that you should consider is the success factors. Of course, this is not the only distribution elements that exist. We have packets, we have information systems, and so on. But it's enough for this course and for this lecture. So the success factors depends on these 5 basic points. The first point is whenever you enter into the market first, whenever you become a market innovator, or when you become an innovator. I hope you remember the course product development and brand management. So when you become innovators or inventors, then there are higher probability that you will be known in the market. If I give you examples, in Ethiopian case, of course, until recent times, when a lot of customers purchase bottled mineral waters, they use one brand which is the first entrant in the market, Highland Spring, or they say give me Highland, or I need Highland waters, or something like that. uh, Actually, we use those brands much often. So if you become the first entrant, if you become an innovator or inventor, then you will have a higher probability to succeed in the market. The second is product diversification. Whenever you diversify your products. Whenever you assort the products, whenever you hold a variety of products in or variety of brands, then you will be successful in the market. If you remember the third chapter, when we discuss about product, we have said a retail store should hold variety of products with variety of price options and with variety of brands. So if you diversify your product, then you will be successful in the market again. Customer loyalty is the third success factor. If you have loyal customers, they will never shift. They will only purchase your product, and then they transfer positive word of mouth to other customers too. So customer loyalty is the other success factor. Continuous innovation is the other one, meaning you should come up with an innovative product, with new products now and then. If you remember your product development course again, product life cycle, there are times where products enter into a decline stage. So before entering into decline stage, you should come up with new ideas. You should come up with new products to solve the customer's problem. So it will help you in that way. For example, let me give you one exercise. All right. Let's say you are hearing or you are listening to music, and you are in a group of let's say 3 or 4. What options do you have? You cannot disturb the other people in your vicinity or in the area, so you should use earphones, right? So if you use earphones, what are the options that you have so that all 4 of you will be satisfied while listening to the music without disturbing your neighbors? So what options do you have? Think about it, and we'll discuss on those points. So you should come up with an innovative and problem solving product, because marketers are also problem solvers. The last success factor is advertising techniques. How we are going to advertise your product matters, because when you say advertising, it is a type of promotion, it is a type of technique that you transfer the message to your consumers. So what advertising techniques you have used matters to be successful in the market. You could take different examples in Ethiopian case, but I think it is better if we discuss it in the next chapter of advertising. So these are the success factors that you need to see. If you say, let's assume, am I the first entrant in the market? Then yes. Product diversification, yes. The more yeses that you have in addressing the questions, the more successful you will become. The more no you have for the answer, then the less successful you will be in the markets. So saying that, what are the channel strategies that you are going to use, or what channel strategies do you have in selecting your intermediaries? This is as a producer or as a manufacturer, actually. So the first thing is you should analyze the customer's needs. What is the customers require? What is the demand of the customer? So customer analysis is the first step. So in analyzing the customer's need, you should address these basic issues. Number one is quick and reliable delivery. Uh, do they require quick and reliable delivery? Of course they do. So you should address these basic issues in analyzing the customer's needs and the customer's requirement. The second is you are going to set the channel objectives. So when you set the channel objectives, it might be any of these three. Uh, one of the objective might be customer service delivery. The other objective might be on product characteristic. The other might be the status of the economy and so on. So you should set your objective in this way. So this is the second step that you are going to see in designing channels. The third is identifying major channel alternatives, meaning what are my alternatives in terms of structure, in terms of scope, and so on. So when you say in terms of structure, you have discussed about it when we start the chapter. We have said direct and indirect distribution, but when we discuss about the levels or the scope of distribution or the intensity of the distribution, you are discussing how many of the distributors should be involved. Should so many of the uh, distributors involved in distributing my product or not? So you have three basic options in channel intensity. So you have exclusive channel, meaning there will be only one sole distributor of that specific product. You might have selective distribution, meaning you might select 2 3 distributors to distribute your products in the market, or you might have intensive distribution channel, meaning you'll use all the available intermediaries to avail your products for your customers. So you should identify the channel alternative that you have as the third step. The fourth step is selecting the appropriate channel. Which channel should I choose? We'll discuss the criteria in selecting the appropriate channel in the next slides. So let's go to the fifth step. So you should arrange and set up with selected channels. You should negotiate with your channels. So when you set and arrange the policies, or when you negotiate with channels, you might set the price policy. You might negotiate in terms of sales conditions, the payment terms, how they will be paying your payments, and then when they will be paying for the products, what guarantees do they have, and so on. And then you are going to negotiate about distributors territory. You might assign a sales territory. It is negotiable actually. So you might negotiate on territorial matters, and you might also negotiate on the responsibilities of uh, your distributor. So you should negotiate with your channels, and then you should control and evaluate the selected channels. So when you control and you evaluate the channels, it is after uh, signing the agreements to distribute your product. It's a kind of monitoring and controlling steps. So diagrammatically, you can see the selection process in here. uh, the first is assessing the market potential and assessing the product range, then arrive at appointment or negotiation pointers, then search for prospect and so on, and finalizing your uh, negotiations. Also, these are the diagrammatic representation of the previous discussions. So when you select distributors, these are the criteria that needs to be checked. So the first one is financial capacity. Uh, do the retailers or the distributor has budgets to carry my products and deliver my products? Do they have the finance to pay the bills on timely basis, and so on? So you have to check the financial capacity, because if they don't have the financial capacity, they will not be paying your the bills, so that you might be in jeopardy because you cannot produce the product on time. And then you are going to see prior experience on that field. Do those distributors has experience in the market? Do they have market knowledge and market reputation? Do they know the product? Have they worked in that sector before, and so on. And then you are going to see the infrastructures too. For instance, if I give you example, uh, if you think of becoming an agent for Coca-Cola, there are certain criteria that you need to fulfill. First, you need to show your bank statements, which will help them to check your financial capabilities and that of credentials. And then they will ask you for warehouse, specific warehouses, and then transportation vehicles, which is included in the infrastructure part. You should check the infrastructure, the warehouses, that the warehouse uh, fulfills the requirements, meaning in terms of quality, in terms of quantity. In terms of quality, it means uh, do they have appropriate uh, equipments? For instance, it might require refrigerators, it might require ventilation shafts or vents, and so on. So, in terms of quality, you have to check whether that infrastructures, including the vehicles, and quantity, you might require 2 or 3 vehicles, or you might require in terms of warehouse, you might require a certain uh, meter square of uh, size. So you should check the quality and the quantity of the infrastructure, meaning the warehouse, the transportation vehicles, and so on. And then you are going to check synergy. Synergy means do they hold products which is competitive or complementary product. If it is competitive product, then you should not select that distributor. uh, if it is complementary product, then there is a synergy between your product and the product that they are carrying. So it will give you a better sales if it have synergy. And then technology is included in the infrastructure. What technology do they have? For instance, when the distributors pay the bills to I mean, could they pay the bills through banks, or do they deposit in cash? So technology is the other. Attitude, social profits, and future plans is also the basic issues that you need to check as a manufacturer and as a producer in selecting distribution channels. So uh, the today's lecture is over in here. So in the next lecture we'll be discussing about retail promotion. What is retail promotion, types of retail promotions, how we are going to promote your retail so that you can uh, build strong brands and so on. Until then, stay safe, and thank you very much for your patience and for your uh, enthusiasm. So see you next time. Have a good day.